What up? What up? Can I give myself a little bit round of applause?
You're exclusive.
I love them all. It's so hard to pick just. It's like trying to pick a child, a favorite child.
I also believe that everybody is special. And that's the thing. It's discovering what makes you special and different from everybody else.
So
Whoa, that's $8 to $10 million a month.
it was more than that. It was a lot of money, and we had a lot of perks, and I had over 300 gas stations that I operated.
Hello, Tom Vecchia here with the New Theory podcast. We take great pleasure and effort into getting you quality guests. As you know, we had Gary Vaynerchuk on previously. We've had Jared Glant as well as Grant Cardone on the podcast. And the reason why I bring up Grant is Grant has described our next guest as a marketing genius. On top of that, Damon John wrote the foreword of his book, Brand Intervention, 33 Steps to Transform the Brand You Have into the Brand You Need. David Brier, welcome to the New Theory podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, Tom. Thank you for having me, man.
All right, so let's cut to it. Branding has become even more important than the past because you used to be able to get to clients by buying some PPC, doing a little SEO, getting some nice PR, and maybe you kept the customer, maybe you didn't, and you spent some money, you got some more. Now there's so much space and noise out there that brands have to again go from the brands that that they want to be to the brands that you need to be. So first, walk us through what exactly is branding from the fundamental perspective.
Sure. All right. So here's the basic thing, and I'll start with what it isn't, just so we kind of get that out of the way. Too many companies, they treat a brand very much like, how it looks. They look at the skin. How does it look? And there's this and its color, and which is all relevant, but they don't look underneath and figure out, okay, hold on a second. Joe Consumer, Jane Consumer, they've got so many options today. And right now, they're literally, if you or I were to go online and we type in onto Google, we would basically have thousands of options to choose from. That's the problem. That's the scenario. That's the reality. That is what branding actually addresses. The thing that branding addresses is this. How do you and I tell one product from another? Because every day there are inferior products outperforming superior products.
Correct.
And you go, well, how the hell is that possible? Are they spending more money? Are they doing this? They're doing that. The bottom line is you and I, when we are shopping, we are looking for something that is different than all the other stuff. Otherwise, it all blends in. And as a result, we basically determine what the difference is by saying, oh, well, shit, they all look the same as each other. So as a result, I'm going to go for the cheapest one.
Commoditization. Okay, so brand and brand recognition is and this was, I believe, in your book, differentiation of either your brand, your product, or your message is essentially just differentiation, essentially.
Yeah. It is. As I do cover in the book, you got that right. It's 4 words, the art of differentiation. What we're doing, everything we're doing for any brand, the only value that we can bring to it is that I notice that, holy crap, that is not the same as those others. It's different. Let's look at an example that everyone is familiar with. You look at Dyson vacuum cleaners. For what? For 50, 60 years, vacuum cleaners remain the same. Nothing changed. And then all of a sudden, Dyson comes out and they use their turbine technology. They introduce that, so it's no longer the loss of suction, so they do that. It totally looks different. They use design. They use color. They actually, you even see the turbine working when you're doing it. So at every time, it's no longer it's not a mysterious thing hidden in some secret box. It's like you're actually seeing it when you're using it. And they practically overnight, they completely crushed everybody and all the other players. The Electroluxes and all of the other players started scrambling heavily because holy crap, it's like all of a sudden by doing that, not only because of all the factors of design, the look and the feel and the technology, but it was instantly different. which
Okay.
made all of the other guys who had basically gotten complacent. They gotten very lazy. They worked out their systems and their sales systems and their presentation systems to just generate revenue, but they forgot they got lazy. They relied on the past. The great brands usher in the future, and that's basically what they did. And literally overnight, they made all of the other ones. Oh, that's yesterday's technology. We're about what's now and the future, just by what they did and differentiating. That's a very clear example because almost everybody knows about Dyson vacuum cleaners.
Okay. So early on in a brand's life cycle, is it more important to the brand to look good or for the brand to be good? I can elaborate.
Okay.
Okay. So I get usually attached to many projects earlier on as a digital marketer. So we'll try to do our best to get them the right likeness, the right visual, the right creatives that are congruent with their brand to create awareness, right? So that is to look good, right?
Yeah.
Versus sometimes we're like, hey, why don't you go out there and get 1,000 clients and get people talking about you, get people, becoming loyalists, becoming advocates. And we're not worried about your logo right now. We're just worried about you treating X amount of patients or you having this many clients. And then we can focus on where your brand fits into the marketplace. So would you rather have a brand that looks good up front and it will attract people to check it out? Or would you have the brand just goes out there and just kind of like rough and tumble, collects data based off of usage and works to be good maybe through customer service? Or
all right. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
You've separated them, and I don't think it's an either or equation. I mean,
Okay.
I'll clarify. One, we have to assume that what you're offering is valuable. I mean, right, that it actually does benefit the user. That's issue number one. If we have that as a foundation, then what we're dealing with is, you can drive some revenue and do some stuff, but you're going to lose in the long play. You will lose if you aren't consistently making yourself relevant because of the fact that we live in such an attention-starved culture. I mean, everyone has 15 seconds to look at this. They have these short attention spans. So with that, brands have to work harder to be immediately, instantly recognizable as different. So while you can offer value, there's the experience that the person has. That experience partly might be, let's say for example, you have a business that has a culture where everyone is like really inclusive and they're really cool and they just want to hang out with you and they're not trying to pitch you. That's the way that company is. And you just dig hanging out with them. That's part of the experience. Now that doesn't have anything to do with the appearance. It has to do with the relationship. Okay, but that's experiential. Now the visual part is also experiential. So that now if I'm walking down the street and there's like I have 15 different coffee vendors, obviously that I'm really into like excellent quality coffee. So I always use that as an example. So I go ahead and I walk down the block and I've got a few independents. I have a few chains. I got a couple of Starbucks and whatever. And I got a Pete. So I've got these different options to choose from. Part of it is going to be, what have I heard about it? What's the social proof? But at the same time, visually, what captures my attention? You can have I had a client, as an example, that made some of the most amazing handmade chocolate truffles in the Midwest. They were probably in the top 3 or 4 best chocolate truffles you can have in the United States. And the thing was, the owner was a purist. He was like, he says, anybody who knows chocolate, they'll find me. And I'm like, dude, marketing isn't telepathy, okay? And so you need to create a bridge from the greatness that they'll discover once they actually taste your stuff to them being like, I have no idea about you. So you have to get on their radar. Part of doing that is how you talk, the language that you use, and in each of those points, that all has to differentiate. So how you look needs to differentiate, how you talk needs to differentiate, the colors you use needs to differentiate, the packaging materials, all the various components. So all of that played in, and by addressing all of that with him, he literally, and I'm not exaggerating, we did a soft launch in June of the year that I did the rebrand for him, and I came back to him at the end of the month, And I said, Mike, how did it go? And he told me their sales of truffles tripled 300%. They did nothing to drive revenue other than literally having these boxes on the back counter behind the actual front display. That was it. There were no new sexy people. There were no new pitches, no new promotional hours, no new signage, no new offerings, no 2-for-1s, no new flavors, nothing. Not even the smell of the place changed. It was the same except for these boxes on the back. And once people started seeing the boxes, feeling the boxes, touching them, they weren't like anything because we broke convention. Everybody, because I've done stuff for Estee Lauder, I've done stuff for Revlon. And the thing with those, there's a cosmetic school of design, which is make it look like everything, but say nothing. Give it that aura of everything, but don't communicate anything. And all chocolatiers, their competition, were following that. So they were saying nothing. Now I looked in the culture and I said, wait a second. People love food magazines. People love celebrity chefs. People love all of these different options out there. They love little sound bites. If you get a bunch of foodies together, what are they going to? They're going to talk about recipes. Oh, the technique for doing this. Oh, what's the best way to cut your meats? What's the best place to source this and that? So they love information. So to me, these are contrary facts. So I then got all this chocolate trivia, packed the whole thing with tons of information on it, made it really beautiful, new brand, new logo, even language that was fun. It said like, may result in chocolate envy, share responsibly. And just the whole tone of it, and that is what drove their 300% growth in sales. And that continued through the rest of the summer, even to August, outperforming February.
So just by virtue of, we're going to call it a tweak to their internal branding, they experience exponential growth. That's pretty sick. Is that something that's common, or is that a bit uncommon?
To experience 300% increase is insane. Plus, they were a boutique single location operation. So the same traffic that previously was spending 1/3, all of a sudden they were like, oh, I love that. I'll take a whole box. Oh, I love that. So, literally to leverage a relationship, what it is, it cemented the relationship because that particular, the culture of that store was such that, it was kind of a local kind of thing, but it wasn't the total warm and fuzzy where you kind of might go to some place like maybe you have your favorite barista somewhere and you go and you hang out and whatever. So anyway, but that was remarkable. To have a 300% increase in 30 days that's probably quite rare.
Yeah, no, I figured as much. I just when the way I kind of positioned the question, and I would like for you to, people are listening, and this, people will internalize and say, hey, what about my brand? How's my brand? What's going on? Yep. So when you take some time to have some introspection on your brand, how do you know things are going well? What's a marker of that? And then when do you maybe have to look into either tweaking or full rebranding?
Cool. All right. So there's a few things. There are metrics that I look at. There are very key metrics I look at internally and metrics that I look at externally. So I'll give you some examples. So internally, it's like, okay, are we getting complacent? That's just sort of like a conscience barometer. Are we getting complacent? Are we doing things in a lazy way? Can we do it better? Okay. That's one. Another is, are we merely meeting expectation? Or are we actually going above and beyond what the customer experiences? Because if we're merely meeting expectation, like they expect good service and they expect knowledgeable people when they speak to them and they expect the thing to be what it is, what they've ordered. And if we merely deliver that, I can guarantee you someone will very soon eat your lunch. Because meeting that isn't extraordinary. But if you just do a little bit extra, and you can do it incrementally and then grow into it. But give me more than what it's like. Not only was it delivered on the day that I wanted it, but it was delivered that morning for no extra charge. And it also had a handwritten note and said like, hey, if you need anything, here's my card. Little gestures like that go a long, long way. Okay. So those are some key barometers that I always look at expectation. That's a big one. Now, on the external side, I look at are there cultural changes that can actually be impacting our space? Are people more mobile? Are people less mobile? Are people's needs shifting as a result? Are technologies changing where, a year ago we had an advantage, but now what was innovative a year ago has become mainstream, which every innovation becomes ultimately. Everything mainstream you can trace back to a prior innovation. From fire and the wheel on upward, right? It's like what was breakthrough 5 years ago for technology is now mainstream and considered. If you don't have that, you're not even a contender, right? So we know this kind of thing. So those are things those are key metrics that I look at, and then I use that to refine the brand story, refine the brand look. I mean, even today, there are still brands that emulate and follow Apple. What Apple established the clean, gorgeous photography, imagery for computers and mobile devices and technology. The clean sans serif font, the whole deal. They established that, and everybody from Samsung onto Microsoft, they follow it. It's just even today, so it's like, and Apple keeps upping the game, and they keep upping the game and refining it. They're doing a good job. I think for a few years ago, they had lost their way. I'd say about 5 years ago, just before Steve Jobs' passing, and just maybe the following 2 to 3 years, they kind of were losing their way. It was like, wait a second, Apple, are you going to innovate? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? What's your voice? But now they've really reclaimed that, and that's really important. That's an example.
All right. So one thing I really love about your book, it's actionable and it's a very straightforward Brooklynese of you. So I think you'll appreciate this question. So I myself do not claim to be a master at branding. What I'm more of a doer, right? And I need to get more creative. I need to learn more about. And one thing I learned about your brand is that brand intervention is that it's not just about, like you said, it's not just about the look and the feel. It's how the person may answer the phone. It may be how the person smiles at you. It may be the email follow-up, the personal note, whatever it is, right? That's all part of the brand experience. Now, so here's the thing, though. So I, have a digital marketing firm. Also, New Theory, people do, pay us to get them business. And a lot of the early discussions are like this. They're exploratory and they're great and they're branding. And the first thing we say is branding is, and marketing is a marathon, not a sprint, right? Yep. But then once 2 or 3 months go by and they have a few slow months and they throw you a few grand, they're like, hey, buddy, where are the leads? So one of the things I get conflicted with is, as a marketer, I have to produce leads and revenue, which, let's just take a second to go through the funnel. It's awareness, consideration, conversion, loyalty, and advocacy, right? And one of the things I try to explain to my clients is it's a marathon, not a sprint, and we need to hit all 5 touch points. Sometimes when they complain about leads or revenue, which they have the right to because they're paying us very good money, we'll suit up like Batman and really focus on the conversion. But my concern about that is we leave so much of the brand, like it's more transactional than relational. My question is, how can I get my clients, the people listening, and to get their clients to kind of a steady stream and marathon that you don't have that dialogue where you're off on leads?
Right. Okay. I mean, so the one thing that I do is I will if a discussion like that comes up, I will very often say, so are you delivering, or first of all, is your delivery of what you're, not physical delivery, but the actual providing of the service or the product, are you delivering what people are actually buying? Okay. Right? In other words, is it meeting what they've ordered, or is it, shy of that? Is it like a substandard product or service? That's the first thing I check, right? Okay. Second thing I check is, are they actually doing all the things that are follow-up things that we've discussed? Like, for example, and you know this in the book, one of the things that I am a very, very strong advocate of is post-sales branding. Okay. One of my clients, they had an online business. all they did, it was totally 100% online, 100% female audience. And basically, it was providing all the favors that would be part of a bridal shower, a baby shower, a bachelorette party, and all this kind of stuff. So these milestone events, I did a whole rebrand on these guys. Their sales started to like increase really, really nicely. And then I said, now here's what I want you to do. I said, I want you as part of a post sales, because, and for those that are not familiar with it, who haven't yet gotten the book, and I did say yet because I expect every one of you who are listening to this to buy the freaking book and get the hardcover. Tom, just get the hardcover. The hardcover is the one.
It's a work of art. It's a work of art. And I don't think yet I plugged many books on the podcast. This is a must have. I already read it 3 times.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the thing is with regard to post sales branding, the thing that there's 3 phases, and the book covers this. There's 3 phases. There's pre-sales branding, which everybody does. There's during the sales branding, or either during the sale, whether they're on your site or getting the service or whatever. That's sort of during the process of either acquiring or being delivered the service or product. That's sort of during that experiential part. But then when that transaction is done, 95% of companies just like, that's it. It's like, good. We've collected the money. We're fine. We've delivered. Good. Goodbye. That's where customers, clients, do not expect you to do anything more, which is the greatest opportunity for you to actually stand apart. So what I told these guys is I said, guys, I want you to take, because I think they were shipping 200 plus shipments a day. I think they were in that range at that point. I said, so that's a lot of shipments each week. I said, what I want you to do is every day, I want you to take, and I said, you determine what the threshold is, whether you can handle 25, whether you can handle 50, whether you can handle 70, 75, whatever it is. I want you to write them a note 1 week after the sale, after the delivery, after their experience, because you're helping them make sure that personal experience is a pleasurable milestone and not a nightmare where everything went wrong, but actually instead, wow, it's great memories, great photos, great this, great that, everything is great. So I want you to send a thing. And they're like, oh, you want us to like email? I said, you email and I'll break your fingers. I said, you are going to hand write, and we're going to design a beautiful card. It's going to go in a regular business envelope, but it's going to be a nicely beautiful designed one. And I said, I want you to hand write. That's why I say, determine the threshold. People will get writer's cramp, and not everybody's handwriting is equally legible. So get 1, 2, 3 people, however many there are, and however many you can do. So I think they ended up doing like 75 at a time.
Wow.
The response that they got was freaking overwhelming. They said it's more response than any like email campaigns they do or whatever, because no one takes the time, again, differentiation.
Yeah.
No one takes the time to simply fill out a handwritten thing, put it in a freaking envelope, put a stamp on it, and mail it. I said, so you could dumb it down into efficiency. A numbers cruncher would go, oh, that's inefficient. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's inefficient, my ass. Bottom line is go ahead and get it out there. And the response was overwhelming because they just took those extra few minutes. And me, as Mrs. Blah Blah consumer, I actually, after this baby shower happened, and then so-and-so, someone from the company says, hey, dear Phyllis, want to just check how your baby shower went. I was so thrilled with the choice you made. Would love to hear how it went. And the emails that came back were like ridiculous. And the brand loyalty was locked in right there.
Yeah, and you bring a good point, because then once like loyalty happens, advocacy blossoms.
Oh yeah. And the thing is when you have a 100% female base, I mean, I jokingly say this, but I think it's actually more true than it's not, is I say that men are genetically incapable of actually doing what women do spontaneously, which is they can launch a 30-minute infomercial on your product or service with their girlfriends at the drop of a hat. Whether it's personal hygiene or it's fashion or it's beauty or skincare or whatever the hell it is, bang, all of a sudden you have a captive audience. And if one of them is excited, by the end of that little, girls' night out or whatever, all of them are going to be, into your product and service. So that was part of the strategy as well.
That's amazing. So what is the 66% rule? Color audience.
The 66% rules is very much aligned to what I was talking about in terms of there's the three phases. So you have pre-sales, you have during sales, and you have post-sales branding. Now the thing is that, like I said, 90+% of companies only do pre-sales and during the sales, right? Or during the delivery. They don't do anything with the post-sales. So they consider those two to be the entire sales and branding cycle. That's actually only 66% of the branding cycle. You're literally ignoring and omitting 33% of the potential of your brand by not implementing the post-sales branding, which I go over in the book.
I love it. Now, I'm going to put links on the website that's going to join this podcast. However,
Awesome.
some people may be subscribing in on iTunes and maybe on Drive Time. So how can we find the book, David?
Okay, well, the best place to find the book is go to Amazon.com, and obviously it exists. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on iBooks, on the iTunes via iTunes. My personal recommendation. I mean, granted, if you're somewhere like in some remote part of the world, which some people are, they kind of go, okay, I'm gonna download a digital version. That's great. But what I would say is the cost difference between the paperback and the hardback. The production values of the hardcover are just awesome. They're to die for. And the bottom line is if you truly want the full experience, just get the freaking hardcover. And that's where to go. Go to Amazon. Because right now, as of today, we had and it's just been out for what, I don't know, 7 weeks, 6 weeks. There's 23 5-star ratings with amazing. People have called it everything from to a must read to an instant classic to several people called it the branding Bible.
I love
which
it.
blew my mind. I mean, these are people, they don't even, I don't know, unless they know each other. I don't know that they know each other. There's about 3 people that literally called it the branding Bible. Like, that's it.
I remember you and I were texting back and forth, and I was one of those people, and independently, other people brought that up, so I thought that was pretty cool. So, David, I had high expectations, really high expectations of the book. It exceeded those expectations. I actually am now looking at my personal brand as well as the brands that I do manage, and I believe we're going to do a better job as a result. And I mean, if I jokingly sent a picture, not jokingly, but affectionately sent a picture of me having a cigar and reading the book, and I think I got through the book in 2 cigars, so it's not that long of a read.
There you go.
Not that long of a read. So David, thanks for being on the New Theory podcast, and I wish you the best of luck on your continued success.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, guys should get the book. And if they want to also subscribe to risingabovethenoise.com, there's some great content and information that's always coming through that. So that's rising, RISING, risingabovethenoise.com. And I will see or speak to you guys in the very, very near future. Let's rock this place, and let's turn branding upside down and inside out, man. I can't wait.
Love it, brother. Be well.
All right, you too.